Hey friends, Leigh Brown here with One Community Real Estate in episode 2 of Cooking with Leigh, because just like you, I'm at home during the coronavirus and I actually like cooking. So now is my chance to make y'all some really long videos with some ingredients and some recipes and some fun, so that maybe you can forget your woes for just a minute. So you know what we're gonna start with? We start with butter. Yes, because butter belongs in almost any recipe. And if it doesn't have butter, you probably should question it. And what I'm doing right now is heating up my stock pot, because chicken and dumplings are almost a one-pot meal. They cook in one pot, but you're gonna need one more bowl for mixing your dumplings. And so I'm waiting on it to heat up a little bit. And we're gonna use, a tablespoon or thereabouts. I don't always measure things, and I think that's just because my grandmothers didn't either. So there goes some butter. Once that's melted, we're gonna add in some mirepoix. Now, I'm lazy, and so I buy it already cut at the grocery store. If you did not know, mirepoix is a combination of carrots, onions, and celery. So if you're cheaper than I am, and I'm pretty cheap, but not all the time, then what you could do is buy your carrots, onions, and celery and cut it up yourself. But I'm not good at chopping. I did not take that class in cooking, and it was not taught to me by my grandmothers. So what I have is what you see. I would probably not be a very good television cook because I'm obviously not planning everything perfectly. So now I'm gonna let my butter melt, and I'm fixing to put my mirepoix in there. Now, full disclosure, I have washed my hands about 47 times already, and I already took my rings off because you don't want to get flour in them. And I cleansed my countertops extra good, because that's another reason realtors will tell you that's why you want quartz countertops, because they are non-porous. And I know some of y'all like your granite, but y'all, granite you got to seal all the time because that is a natural surface and it is porous. And if you like to cook on your countertops, you can make a hot mess out of your granite. And some of y'all let raw chicken lay around, which you probably shouldn't do that anyway. We're not messing with raw chicken tonight. I should tell y'all, as you're putting your shopping list together and you wrote down your butter and your mirepoix, you should know that because I'm lazy, I also buy the roasted chicken at the Harris Teeter, and I pull the chicken off the bone. And that's about the extent of the work that I do. Now, if you want to get a whole chicken and cook it down, then you're gonna find out that it's actually cheaper to buy a roasted one. I don't understand grocery store math all the time. I don't know why it happens, but anyway, we're about to get our butter melted good here. I'm at a medium heat. I don't go medium high right now because it's not time for it to boil. Now, when it's ready for it to boil, I'll cut the heat up. It's not ready yet, but my butter's about melted. If you're a new cook, you should know that if you let your butter go too long, it will burn, and it will be a beautiful shade of brown, but that is not the flavor we are looking for. So let me get my wooden spoon, because like any good old person, I like to cook with a wooden spoon. Lots of things you can do with a wooden spoon, but we're not going to get into that right now. So let me let the mirepoix cook down. And what's going to go in there after that is fully translucent. You always kind of go by your onions. I'm going to put in a quart of chicken broth, and I use the one that's 33% less sodium just because it makes me feel like I'm healthier. And I got a quart of water. Now, the recipe calls for 2 quarts of water, but I have discovered that using the chicken broth adds a lot of flavor, and I'm all about flavor, which is, of course, why I cook with butter. And so that's your first steps, all right? So y'all good so far? Good. Have you a sip of something, in the immortal words of Bill Gallagher? I always use my great-grandmother's good glasses for cooking because it makes me feel special. So now we're going to work on our dumplings. So you need all-purpose flour. I only use white lily. And if you are a Yankee, I feel sorry for you if you do not understand that white lily is legit the best flour ever invented. It's why Southerners know how to make good biscuits, and it's why we make the better chicken and dumplings. We've got the good flour. So there's 2 cups of flour going in this. And when you're measuring for dumplings, you don't have to be like crazy precise, because this is not a precision French baking event. Now, while I'm putting that in the bowl, and we'll get a little extra out and put it on my countertop, because you're going to have to roll out your dumplings. So I go ahead and prep for that and leave I generally put a little bit extra right here, just so I don't have to put my hand back in my flour container. Now, remember, that's all-purpose flour. Then we're going to put in a half a teaspoon of baking soda, not baking powder, people, baking soda. And by the way, you should have a container of that in your refrigerator and your freezer too, to keep it fresh, because some people don't know that you need that baking soda to keep your refrigerator and freezer fresh, but you have now learned that. And then I think we also need to put, I'm going to step off camera. See, I'm not a TV cook. I forgot to get my fork from off camera. Let me get a fork. I'm going to use this to mix my baking soda in with my flour so that it will even out. It also removes the lumps from my flour if any have snuck up in there. And so I'll just mix that a little bit. All right, now we have the real secret comes next. And what I'm going to do is get my Crisco. Crisco is your friend. If you think shortening is terrible or lard is bad, you have missed out on the beauties of life. I need about 3 tablespoons of this, which is, I use the butter flavor Crisco because, again, butter. So let's do 1, 2, 3. That's going to be, oh, I don't know, about this much. See, we kind of ish it. Now, got to check your mirepoix too, because you don't want that to burn in the pan. You let that keep on cooking down. And then I'm going to cut this into small pieces. So this is going to mix into my dumpling mix by virtue of being cut in. So you don't ever dump shortening in at one shot. And you also don't melt it because it's just a different kind of product. And I need this for the texture and for the crumbliness of my dough, because it will give you kind of a cornmeal texture when you chunk it into your flour and baking soda combination. Now, if you are not familiar with shortening and lard and Crisco, you should know that you don't buy off-brands of some things. Like y'all don't buy off-brand toilet paper. Well, you didn't until the coronavirus situation, but you don't buy off-brands of toilet paper, you don't buy off-brands of tampons, and you don't buy off-brands of Crisco, all right? So we're just gonna make sure that we're using nice little chunks spread out throughout the pan into our mixture there. And see, it's going to make your hands have a very nice sheen on it. So if you have dry hands, it's a wonderful thing to cook with Crisco. So now what I have got to do is get my pastry blender. It's one of the better tools in my kitchen. You may not have one, and so it's money worth spending. I don't know if it's like $8 at the Harris Teeter or not, but basically you just kind of mush this around in your flour till you start creating some little chunks, and it's less smooth. It was smooth before, and I want it to be just a little bit coarse. So I'm going to chunk up the rest of our shortening, knock it off the pastry blender. They always like to gather back up with the kinfolk. Let me leave that there for a second. Check my mirepoix. Onions are just about translucent. But, oh, that smells good. Actually, it smells like Thanksgiving, because that's also the beginning of good dressing, is a nicely sauteed mirepoix. All right, so now that I have my Crisco cut in, we're going to get our measuring cup, and we're going to put in 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk. So you need buttermilk. I buy Turner's. Mayola makes good one too. And probably right now during the shortages at the grocery store due to the coronavirus, I would imagine you could still get buttermilk. My granddad used to drink it straight out of a glass. Never did understand how he was able to do that, but God rest his soul, he was. And so we're going to add this in and mix it around with our mixture of flour and baking soda and Crisco. Buttermilk's got such a nice texture. Just doesn't smell super great, but what you going to do? So I'm going to cut that in and kind of moisten it. Now I'm going to have a pretty rough dough. So y'all, this is not some fancy dough. This is not one that's something you're going to display and roll out and turn into Christmas cookies. But you want it to stick together enough that you can actually roll it out. So check my mirepoix. Oh, we are translucent. So now I'm going to stir in my quart of water. Such a satisfying sound every time something hits a hot surface in a stock pot. And I'm going to throw in a quart of chicken broth. I'm using Swanson, frankly, because it was on sale this week. And sometimes I have bought store-branded chicken broth. I'm not super particular. But I do check the ingredient list. Be careful if you buy some off-brand stuff. Y'all know they like to throw preservatives and they like to throw sugar into everything. But we're good with Swanson. So I'll put that over here. That goes in my recycle bin because I'll rinse that out and it'll recycle. We'll stir that up good. And we'll keep working on the dough over here. So now I guess I could move the camera where y'all could see my dough over here. Look, there we go. All right now. So you see it's a little bit moist. It's ready to be turned out. So, you know, we talk about turning things out. Some of y'all should turn some of the friends out of your life that are causing you so much trouble and dismay. There's some ugly people in the world, and I don't know why somebody didn't turn them out at some point and let them go straighten things for themselves, but I guess we're just going to love on them instead. In fact, if you fed everybody in your life chicken and dumplings, they'd probably be nicer people, I'm just going to say. But you'd also have a house full every day. And for me being a natural introvert, I don't think I could have a house full of people every day. But it's not so bad eating supper with my family every night. So I'll be glad when things are back to normal, but I'm sure enjoying the gifts of the stay-at-home time frame. Now, this is the fun part of making your dumplings. The fun part is your hands get to get dirty. So we're gonna mush around in here and take this ball and turn it out on our countertop where we had a pile of flour, because what's gonna happen is your dough is gonna absorb some of that extra flour on the countertop and it won't be quite so sticky. But you want it to be some sticky, because too dry is gonna be the nastiest dumplings you've ever had. And we don't want nasty dumplings. So we're gonna start kneading it. You're probably gonna knead it, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 times total. One thing you should know is if you're new to making dough and dumplings and biscuits and things, is that if you knead it too many times, it will get tough. And so if you've ever wondered why those biscuits you get in southern restaurants are light and fluffy, we don't knead things too much. We try to have some moderation when it comes to that. So you see what my dough looks like? It's nothing super fancy. It's just a nice, soft bundle of joy and delight. Now, I've got my hands. Now here's how you clean your hands off, y'all. Did y'all know? You just rub them against each other and you'll get that extra dough off so we can roll it out. Now, because I have absorbed a lot of the flour on the countertop, now y'all see why I put a little extra flour up here on the edge. I need a little flour on which to roll it out. Now, because we're making home dumplings and we're not doing something super duper fancy, you do not have to get a rolling pin, although I have one. I will tell you, my favorite rolling pin is a cold bottle of wine that lives in the refrigerator, and it's not even a kind that I would drink, but it's the perfect shaped bottle for rolling things out. And a cold bottle of wine is just about the perfect implement for rolling out dough, because the cold is helpful for you not messing things up. Now, while that's working, let me cut my stove up to high, because I need my broth over here to get to boiling. So it'll be ready to accept the dumplings and the chicken. Look how close we are, y'all. Look, we're only 13 minutes into this video, and we are right close to having everything on the stove. My dough is ready, and then I will show you how we're going to shape our dumplings. See, you thought this was hard. You maybe go to Cracker Barrel and eat theirs because you just think to yourself it looks complicated. It's not. It just takes a little time. And I gotta tell you that when you cook for people you love, it feels good. And then when they eat it and they love it, that feels good too. And sometimes they have to lie, because you might cook things that suck once in a while, because that happens to all of us. And if that happens, hopefully your people that you love are gracious enough to eat it anyway, and then just say, well, let's don't put that on the list again. That's what my family tells me. It should go on the list or not on the list, because I have a list of regulars. This is how we're going to roll it out, y'all. Just going to pat it out to a decent thickness. I'd say it's maybe like 1/8 of an inch thick. It's not super thick, because you need your dumplings to cook in the boiling broth. If you make it too thick, then they won't cook and you'll have a doughy mess. And we do not want a doughy mess. So, get the rest of the dough off my hands here so I can get my knife. And then, check this out. Here's how we're going to make your dumplings. We're just going to slice like that. I like to slice mine in strips, and then I'm going to cut it into smaller bits. And so most of my dumplings are going to be yay big, so, you know, 1.5 inches long or so. I don't like giant ones because I like it to disperse well in the broth. And frankly, this is the way I make it. It's the way my people eat it. And that's the way you're learning to make it tonight. So congratulations. You have learned the Leigh Brown way to do it, which is also the Myrtle Thomas way to make it. Sue Christenberry did not make dumplings, was not her jam. But Lord, that woman could make vegetable soup. And none of us got the recipe before she passed. And so I will tell you, if you have an old relative that you like, and they're good at cooking, you had ought to take a video camera over there and get a video of them cooking, because they don't always write things down. And if they do, it's a pinch of this and a little bit of that. They cook a little bit like I do, where you're almost just making it up as you go. And in that instance, you would be like us, who did not get Grandma's vegetable soup written down before we lost her to the cancer. But I mean, she was 92, so it's not like we lost her super early. We just did not get around to writing down her recipe. Now, I'll show you one other perk of making your dumplings out of buttermilk and Crisco and flour. If you like raw dough, this is safe to eat. I like raw dough. I don't know why, but I do. So, we've got all of our dumplings sliced up, ready to roll. Well, not ready to roll, we already rolled it, but ready to go in the broth as soon as she's boiling. I might should have started boiling a little bit sooner, but hey, what you gonna do? I was distracted by talking to y'all. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna put the dumplings in the broth very shortly because I got little bubbles. I gotta stop looking because a watch pot never boils. I'm gonna toss in the chicken's worth of meat, and then it's gonna cook for, I don't know, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, whatever. As soon as you feel like it's hot enough and the dumplings are nicely floating at the top, it'll be done. And what you'll have is a Southern supper for company or for family or for yourself or for your friends. And then you want to serve it with a piece of bread or a biscuit, that's fine. We like to serve ours with sourdough just because I like their sourdough they have over at the Trader Joe's. Serve an adult beverage with it. But most importantly, serve it with some love and some conversation. And I'll see y'all next time.